everyone saw Ethel Mertz as the happy, frumpy sidekick, but the woman behind the laughter was fighting a battle that would have destroyed a 1950s career. Vivian Vance spent decades hiding a reality so intense she reportedly celebrated her co-star's death with champagne. Today, we pull back the curtain on the secret she guarded until her final days. Behind the warm, comforting glow of vintage television lies a landscape of hidden pain, intense rivalry, and a woman who was forced to sacrifice her very identity for the amusement of millions. To understand the sheer magnitude of this hidden history, we have to travel back to March of 1966. Picture a bustling, upscale restaurant in New York City. The air is thick with the scent of expensive steaks, cigarette smoke, and the low hum of elite conversation. Sitting at a table is an elegant, beautifully coiffed woman who looks absolutely nothing like the dowdy housewife the world knew from their television screens. Suddenly, a companion leans in to deliver a piece of breaking news. William Frawley, the actor who played her on-screen husband Fred Mertz for nearly a decade, has just dropped dead of a heart attack on a Manhattan sidewalk. Without missing a single beat, the woman smiles, raises her glass, and declares to the waitstaff, "Champagne for everyone?" This was not a joke. This was the raw, unfiltered release of a decades-long hatred that had simmered beneath the surface of America's favorite family comedy. A moment where the clean-cut facade of the 50s cracked wide open to reveal a staggering level of real-world animosity that had been bottled up for years. This startling moment highlights what historians call the nostalgia paradox. We look back at the golden age of television, particularly the 1950s, as a time of pure, uncomplicated innocence. I Love Lucy was the crown jewel of this era, a show that brought families together to watch the hilarious antics of Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel. Ethel Mertz was the ultimate comfort figure, the loyal, sensible neighbor who was always ready to help Lucy stuff chocolates into her blouse or hatch some ridiculous scheme to get into show business. But the warm, fuzzy feeling we get from watching those old reruns is a carefully manufactured illusion designed to distract from the harsh realities of early Hollywood. The reality behind the scenes was a pressure cooker of professional jealousy, systematic aesthetic suppression, and profound personal tragedy. Vivian Vance, the brilliant actress who brought Ethel to life, was trapped in a gilded cage, forced to live as a character she despised. One of the most persistent and dark legends surrounding the production of I Love Lucy is the infamous weight contract. For decades, classic television fans have whispered about a cruel clause supposedly written into Vivian's legal agreement. The rumor claimed that Lucille Ball, highly protective of her status as the show's glamorous, slender star, legally forced Vivian Vance to remain at least 10 to 20 pounds overweight at all times. This myth was so widespread that even today, many believe it to be absolute historical fact. But the true story is far more complex and reveals a great deal about the subtle psychological games played on the set. The origin of the weight contract was actually a joke, a gag contract Lucille Ball presented to Vivian at a party. While the legal document itself was a farce, the underlying power dynamic was deadly serious. The show's producers did not need a legal contract to keep Vivian looking dowdy. They had complete control over the wardrobe and makeup departments. But the pressure to look like a dowdy housewife was nothing compared to the violent secrets Vivian was keeping at home. Imagine walking onto the set of the world's most famous comedy, preparing to make millions of people laugh, while hiding physical bruises and a mind that was actively fracturing. What the public never saw was that Vivian Vance was living in a psychological horror film, fighting a terrifying mental illness that the 1950s entertainment industry would have ruthlessly blacklisted her for. Here is the shocking truth of the day Vivian completely lost her mind. To fully grasp her aesthetic suppression, we have to look at how the production team put Vivian through a systematic process of physical demotion. Vivian's naturally blonde, stylish hair was darkened and styled into flat, unflattering, bedraggled shapes that added years to her appearance. Her wardrobe was restricted to drab, shapeless cotton house dresses that hid her actual figure and made her look like a worn-out suburban housewife. The makeup artists were instructed to trim her eyelashes, keep her makeup minimal, and ensure she wore no false eyelashes or glamorous styling. Even her nails were kept short and unpolished. Vivian, who had spent her youth as a glamorous Broadway performer playing the role of a seductive vamp in the Mae West mold, found this forced transformation deeply painful. She argued with the producers, pointing out that if her on-screen husband Fred constantly mocked her weight and she was actually heavy, the audience would feel sorry for her instead of laughing. She argued that the jokes only worked because she wasn't actually fat, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. The pressure to conform to the frumpy, older Ethel archetype was relentless, leaving Vivian feeling erased and trapped behind a mask of artificial aging. Long before she ever set foot on the Desilu soundstage, Vivian Vance was fighting a battle against her own mind, a struggle rooted in a deeply repressive childhood. Raised by a highly strict mother who taught her that showing her legs was a sin and that performance was a path to damnation, Vivian carried immense psychological scars. In 1945, while staying in a Chicago hotel room during a theater tour, the accumulated weight of this repression crashed down on her. Vivian experienced a catastrophic mental breakdown. She would later describe the experience with brutal honesty, saying, "To put it bluntly, I flipped." In an era when mental health was a forbidden topic, she spoke of the physical terror of her mind collapsing. The very pulse in her ears roared like a train. She was exhausted, but completely unable to sleep, and she found herself gripped by a paralyzing agoraphobia, terrified to leave her hotel room, but equally terrified to stay inside, as the walls seemed to physically close in on her. This severe emotional trauma didn't simply vanish when she joined the cast of I Love Lucy. In fact, the intense, high-stakes pressure of the weekly television production threatened to trigger another complete psychological collapse. Every single Monday morning, as the cast prepared to start a new week of filming, Vivian would drive down Sunset Boulevard toward the studio. The anxiety was so suffocating that by the time she reached Schwab's drugstore, she would have to pull her car over to the side of the road, gripping the steering wheel as her hands shook violently. She had to literally talk herself out of a panic attack, pleading with her own mind to make the rest of the drive to the studio. She would tell herself that she couldn't let the world see her fail again, that she would rather be dead than prove to the industry that she was a quitter. Compounding this internal agony was a deeply troubled personal life. Her marriage to actor Philip Ober was a nightmare of domestic abuse. There were days when Vivian reportedly arrived at the studio with physical bruises, forced to use heavy television makeup to conceal the evidence of her husband's violence. At one point, she desperately wanted to quit the show to save her marriage, but her husband, enjoying the financial security of her massive success, flatly refused to let her leave. Yet, out of this profound suffering, Vivian Vance did something truly revolutionary. Instead of allowing her trauma to destroy her, she turned her pain into a crusade. Decades before mental health awareness became a mainstream movement, Vivian used her immense fame to become an open, fearless advocate. Whenever she toured the country, she made a point of visiting local mental health hospitals. She didn't go as a high and mighty celebrity performing for the patients, she went as a peer. She would sit with the residents, look them in the eye, and share her own history of nervous breakdowns, offering them a vital ray of hope. She spoke at colleges, civic clubs, and national conferences, actively fighting the deep societal stigma surrounding mental illness. She received awards from the National Association for Mental Health, proving that while she was playing a comic sidekick on television, she was performing life-saving work in the real world, showing incredible bravery at a time when admitting to psychological struggles could instantly end an actor's career. Of course, no discussion of Vivian's struggles on the set of I Love Lucy is complete without examining the legendary, bitter war between her and William Frawley. The casting of Fred and Ethel Mertz was a stroke of comedic genius, but it was forged in pure animosity. The root of their hatred lay in a profound insecurity and an age gap that neither could reconcile. When Vivian was cast as Ethel, she was only 42 years old, just 2 years older than Lucille Ball. William Frawley, however, was 64. Vivian was dismayed to find herself paired romantically with a man who was 22 years her senior, and she didn't hide her disappointment, famously complaining that audiences would never believe she was married to an old man who looked like her father. This comment deeply wounded Frawley's pride. He reportedly snapped that when a man is told he is old, a part of his soul dies. He never forgave her. From that moment on, the two actors engaged in a relentless psychological warfare. Frawley, a hardened vaudeville veteran with a notorious reputation for heavy drinking and a mean-spirited temper, would regularly throw cruel insults at Vivian on set. He mocked her appearance, while she retaliated by calling him a miserable old drunk. The animosity was so severe that Vivian admitted she dreaded receiving new scripts, immediately flipping through the pages and praying she wouldn't have to film any scenes where she and Frawley had to share a bed. Yet, in a bizarre twist of artistic irony, their mutual loathing actually elevated the show's comedy. The constant, biting bickering between Fred and Ethel felt incredibly authentic to audiences because the underlying irritation was completely real. When Fred rolled his eyes at Ethel's complaints, or when Ethel snapped at Fred's cheapness, they weren't just acting, they were releasing genuine venom. We can see the profound impact of this lifelong struggle in the way Vivian reclaimed her identity after the original run of I Love Lucy ended. When Lucille Ball approached her to co-star in the follow-up series, The Lucy Show, Vivian agreed, but on one non-negotiable condition: her character, Vivian Bagley, would not be a frumpy, dowdy sidekick. She demanded that her character be styled with glamour, wearing modern, chic, high-end clothing, sporting a beautiful, fashionable hairstyle, and being allowed to look like the attractive, sophisticated woman she actually was. This dramatic shift was a direct rebellion against the years of aesthetic suppression she had endured as Ethel Mertz. And as for William Frawley, the hostility never faded. Even when they both worked on the same studio lot in the mid-1960s, Frawley starring in My Three Sons and Vivian in The Lucy Show, they actively avoided each other, with Frawley continuing to throw verbal barbs whenever their paths crossed. Her legendary champagne celebration upon his passing was the final punctuation mark on a relationship defined by bitter conflict. Ultimately, the story of Vivian Vance is not just a tale of behind-the-scenes Hollywood gossip. It is a powerful testament to human resilience. Vivian took the hand she was dealt: a repressive childhood, severe mental illness, domestic abuse, a hostile co-star, and a studio system that demanded she hide her beauty, and she forged a legacy that transcended the screen. She made the entire world laugh while her own heart was breaking. And in doing so, she became a quiet pioneer who paved the way for future generations to speak their truth. The next time you watch an episode of I Love Lucy and laugh at Ethel Mertz's perfect comedic timing, remember the extraordinary woman behind the apron. She was a survivor, a crusader, and a brilliant artist who conquered the shadows of the Golden Age. If you want to uncover more dark, hidden truths behind the comforting facades of classic television, stay tuned as we dive into the secret histories of the stars who built the entertainment industry